guys, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome back. I'm so glad that you guys decided to tune in to the Create the Life You Love podcast with Georgia Woodbine and the Chapters Network. I am your host, Georgia Woodbine, and I am super, super excited to share conversations with successful entrepreneurs, business owners, and provide you with content that gives you actionable tips, strategies, and techniques to grow in life as well as in business. Feel free to share your comments with us during this podcast. Like I said, the purpose of this podcast is to share the knowledge, to support you, and to empower you and give you tools to help you move forward and live in your highest potential, all while creating the life you love, because that's the name of the podcast, right? Create the life you love. We would like to welcome our guest, Linda Mondesire, who is currently the co host of the Harlem's 411 and Beyond grassroots talk show on WCR 90.3 FM, Urban Experience. She discusses politics, health, and everything in between. She also hosts show segment called Thinking Healthy Thoughts, and its purpose is designed to promote physical, emotional, and spiritual healing and well-being through affirmations and discussing health issues. She is a former media commentator and radio announcer from the commercial sector, and she's been a pioneer for many years, and the first Black woman and a couple of the first woman in air on air. Period. Let's welcome Linda Mondesire. How are you, my dear?
Hi, how are you? And I'm happy to be here with your guest and the people that are listening to you.
You look gorgeous as always.
Thank you. So do you. And I'm pretty sure, as long as you have a smile on your face, you look good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean, we always have such great conversations, and that's why I wanted to get you on this podcast. I started back in April, and we've been getting such a great response. And I said, why not just keep going with it, you know? So I'm very happy to be a part of it and to be able to invite people like you to share the knowledge. So let's go into like, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the type of work that you do?
Okay, well, first of all, you had explained it. I definitely work at WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. And it's a fun station. There's a lot of different people on it. And what we do is we do interviews, we do talk shows. We talk about all different types of subjects like politics, and we talk about health, we talk about well-being, we talk about mental issues, we talk about
Mhm.
controversial things. But I also do a segment there, it's called Thinking Healthy Thoughts. And
Mhm.
it's sort of in line with what you're talking about when
Mhm.
you actually have come on my show. and
Mhm.
and that is, that when you think healthy thoughts, it brings about healing. And a lot of people don't connect the mind, to the body. And that's really, that's kind of like my purpose there. Now, when I say that I'm a media commentator, it just means that I worked at about 12 different radio stations in the early
Mhm.
70s and 80s, during that particular time. And that was basically down in the South. You had to go south if you were from New York in order to get the experience to come back up here,
Wow.
and work in the industry. To which
Mhm.
I didn't do,
Mhm.
not really. When I came back, I went back into education. But
Wow.
that was at that particular time there weren't women on the radio, on the show. There weren't women on radio except in major cities. Like we had Vi Higginson here and Lamar Renee and Cleo. There was three women that were on at that particular time. But down in the South, no women were down. They weren't. It's still a male dominated industry. So when I went down there, I was sort of like, the first female, and then also in some areas the first Black female that was
Okay.
on it. And that was really due to affirmative action,
Mm.
because they had no choice but to
Mhm.
hire at that time. They were being forced. So as long as you had the experience,
Mhm.
as long as you went to broadcast school, because that's what they had. I don't even know if they have them now, but they
Yes,
had broadcast. broadcasting schools. So
Mm-hmm.
I did that, or me and some friends of mine. And then I had a second career where I have 2 master's degrees in education. So,
Nice.
I was an educator. And
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I like people to know about me is that I have in my home here, I have over 2,000 books, and I've probably
Wow.
read most of them. So that's my biggest, that's my biggest heart. I'm a reader. I'm a bookworm. Terribly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's great. I mean, most people say knowledge is power, and I always say, no, knowledge is not power. It's the implementation of knowledge that's powerful. So, when you get the knowledge, you're supposed to do something with it. So that's great that you have all those books, and I'm sure you're like diving into it and making it actionable, everything that you're learning. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into the media industry? Because, as you mentioned before, there were so many barriers. What inspired you to get into media?
Well, okay, now is that a two-part question? The barriers and what inspired me? Because
Yes,
okay,
yes.
I'll go. Yeah, all right. So anyway, I grew up in the South Bronx, first of all,
Mhm.
and when I was like 13 to 19, I had one boyfriend, and that one boyfriend worked at a music store called Stan's on Third Avenue in the Bronx. So,
Okay.
and during the time in the South Bronx, music was a big thing.
Mhm.
Everybody, we got into old school music. That was
Mhm.
the big deal. And that's really, in a way, what brought us happiness and what
Mhm.
brought us, joy, because there was so many, depressing things we were fighting, the civil rights
Mhm.
movement and all of that stuff. So,
Mhm.
music was the message. And I also was in a church choir, and
Okay.
in that church choir, and as a teen, we did TV Gospel Time. I don't know if you remember that. TV Gospel Time was on Channel 9, I think it was, and it was a
Wow.
show on Sunday that came on, and what it did was it had like different choirs come in
Mhm.
and sing. So we would do that, and then we were in competition.
So you were
We would,
singing?
I sung a couple of songs, but I'm not don't even but because that's not going to do that. So that's actually the cue, because I couldn't sing. I didn't think I could really sing, so I
Mhm.
knew that I could talk. And
Okay.
like you say, books are powerful. But there's a brother by the name of Shechem or Shechem. He is sort of like the pharaoh of this Egyptian culture, and he said, like when I was 19, words are power. Words.
Mhm.
So, and when you take those words and bring them out and make them lively, that's where you get your power from. But anyway, that was what basically inspired me to go in, because what did we do? We listened to the radio. The
Mhm.
radio was big then.
Mhm.
It was almost bigger than television. That's what we listened to. And it started out there. So Frankie Crocker and
I remember Frankie Crocker.
Frankie
Yeah.
Crocker and Ken Webb and Lamar Renee and Vi Higginson and G. Keith Alexander, all of those people, they were in
Mhm.
my home every day. And,
Wow.
I didn't know what else I thought I could actually do, especially
Good.
as a female.
Mhm.
I didn't, so I said, well, I could do that. I talk. So that's how I got started.
So why don't you discuss a little bit? Of course, you being a female, you being African American. What was some of like the big barriers that you had to like confront to really make a mark in that industry? Like what were some of the things that you had to deal
Being Black.
with?
Okay, all right, let me get serious. But no, that really was
Mhm.
one of the biggest barriers, because, like I said before, affirmative without affirmative action at that time, we
Mhm.
couldn't break through the doors.
Mhm.
So basically, it was male dominated. That was another barrier, because I'm a female, and
Right.
so it was male dominated. It was being Black. And one of the other things that, is almost kind of like a no talk about it, but it was
Yeah.
sexual harassment.
Wow. Well, that still exists today. We even
Um,
see it with the
yeah.
Me Too movement. So yeah.
So you had to learn how to dodge those bullets. A lot of
Mhm.
women didn't, a lot
Right.
of women, ooh, I could tell you stories, but, the game was to try to, to navigate going
Mm-hmm.
through radio at that time, because it was male dominated. And
Right.
and coming into that business, I can understand the Me Too movement now. I truly can. And
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to it when when women talk about what they had to go through in that area. So I think that those were kind of like the barriers. Racism, which
Mm-hmm.
was it was definitely something that was difficult, but
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in White Rock Radio. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
was, because I worked with Howard Stern,
Mm-hmm.
at C101 in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on at night, and he came in and relieved me in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was easy to get in, but it was easy because of affirmative action.
Right, right. In life and business, there's so many, stumbling blocks and that may cause us to say, you know what, I want to give up on this. You want to give up on your goals, or, adversity is one of the most important lessons to success. Can
Yes.
you share with us like one of the most important lessons that you have learned in life?
You know, the most important lesson I learned was recently. When I say recently, I mean within the last few years. And
Mm-hmm.
that is that you can have whatever you want, no matter what it is, as long as you believe it. It has to be believed, and you can't doubt, and that you feel that you deserve it. And then you take steps, and no matter how small or how big, you can have it. That's, I think, the most valuable lesson that I've learned.
Oh, yes. No regrets, just lessons. I love that.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
cute. I like that.
I firmly believe, Linda, that we attract what we think about. So it doesn't matter whether it's something that you're speaking negatively about or positively about, you are intentionally creating what you put out in the universe. Whether you want to
Absolutely.
believe it or not, you are. And people may say, what do you mean, Georgia? I mean, all the universe does is receive your thoughts that you put out, and it reflects it back to you in your life with the experiences. So that's what happens. And I think most people sometimes, they, like you was talking about earlier, the power of words and the power of thoughts, and not only that, but the power of emotions, because that's what people don't understand. You can't continuously say, I want change in my life, or I want to, I want to be happy, and you keep saying that you're not happy. So you're putting out mixed messages when you want something, but you're thinking something opposite. So that's so true. Can you like, tell us about, because I know there's certain things that you do to keep you grounded professionally and in business. Can you share like three actionable tips that kind of helps you to stay grounded both personally and professionally?
First of all, I want to stay on what you said, because I think that's the most important thing. When you said, the things that you said about having what you want, I just want, let's talk about that for a minute. And the reason why I really want to talk about that is because for me, I have had so much trouble trying to change my thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
because, I grew up in a negative environment. And most of us have negative thoughts. Most of us do. And those thoughts run through our heads. Even before you wake up, you're in the bed, and all the, you ain't going to have that. This ain't happening for you. You can't do this. You can't do that. And you buy into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very difficult. But one thing I learned was that you can change the channel. You can change the channel, but here's the problem: it will keep coming back. Because if you're a Christian, let's say if you're a Christian, once you have overcome one thing with the devil, he starts all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to keep on, so that's, I mean, that's one way. Thoughts will keep coming negatively. So it's going to be like a tennis match going back and forth, where you're fighting it and fighting it. And it takes time. And I just wanted people to know it takes time to really change that thought from positive, from negative to positive. But I, I, I think that's it. Changing the channel, focusing on your strengths during hard times. taking small, little tiny steps at a time, one step,
Mhm.
one step in front of the other. Um,
Absolutely.
using affirmations. I'm saying nothing more than what you say on your show all the time. This is this is Georgia. This is Georgia on my mind. I'm not saying anything different.
Mhm.
Try to avoid television and radio, to the point where, like, turning on Georgia every time she's going to be on, because you're going to hear something really good that's going to really,
Oh, so
enhance and
cool.
grow you, as
Mm.
opposed to, turning on the television is, woof, it,
Dangerous.
it can be a real negative box. Even when you're trying to change your thoughts, it'll
Mhm.
it'll change it back,
Right.
to something negative.
Mhm.
So I think those are the things that I think are the most important. It's really the mental, changing your
It
mind,
is. It
mind
is
over matter.
changing your mindset, changing your mindset. I don't know
Absolutely.
how many times I've talked about this, but there's two basic mindsets that shapes your life. It's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I think most people walking around, they don't even know which mindset they have and what's preventing them from getting to that next level in their life. Like what's blocking them. And it is always, always 100% of the time your thoughts, your mindset, how you look at things that you were taught as a child, or things that you were taught as a young adult, or just unlearning certain things, because I think we are so programmed to think a certain way and to do things a certain way, and you basically have to unlearn those things and you know start retraining your mindset and start retraining your thoughts. And for me, and you talked about, and I'm a Christian, and that's what keeps me. I don't know for anybody else what keeps them going, but for me, it's prayer, it's daily affirmations, it's meditation, it's setting goals, and just connecting those things and doing them consistently to retrain your thought. Because like you said, Linda, it's work, right? Because it's so much easier to say something's not going to work, right? Or something bad is going to happen. It's easy to think that way. But
Yes.
to think more positive, it takes work, it takes effort, it takes you doing something. So yes, it is harder, but you can get to that next level where you can start to retrain your thoughts, to turn down the negative voice and to turn up the positive voice, right?
Yes.
So, while we're on that note, why don't you talk a little bit about, because I think success means different things to different people. How do you define success? What does success mean to you?
Okay. Success is simple. When you've achieved wealth, health, and happiness. Without either one of them, you're not successful. So that means if you don't have health, but you have wealth, and you claim you're happy, you're not successful. And it goes the other way around too. If you don't have wealth and you have health, then you don't have it all. You're not successful. Or if you don't have the relationship, that you want, all of those things, you have to have all three of them in order to
Mhm.
be totally successful. So that would be what it means to me,
Okay.
have the things that you desire.
hmm there's a quote by Dale Carnegie that I just love.
Mm,
And it says, success is getting what you want, happiness is wanting what you get. And I thought that was like so powerful, because being successful at getting what you want doesn't always equate to happiness. And that's what most people don't understand. So sometimes you want the wrong things, right? So sometimes you think you know what you want, but you really don't know what's best for you. And so make when you think about what's going to make you happy and fulfilled, it comes from achieving, you know, certain accomplishments, or attaining certain things, but mainly feeling grateful. And I think that people take that for granted, because when you are grateful for what you attain and where you are, that is what true success is about, because you know it's not attached to things or external forces that's going to control the way you feel. So I definitely, agree with you with, like, you can't have one without the other. They have to come together as a package. Can you share, like, because I know you said you're going to talk about wellness. What are some, like, self practice tips that you can share with the audience that can help them on that path to living a healthier and happier lifestyle?
Okay. Learning your body, learn what your body likes and what it doesn't like. Listen to your body, even when you're eating. When you're eating, give a few minutes, to feel, how do you feel about it? When you're in a relationship and you're talking, how are you feeling? Because it all has to do with your heart, what you're feeling in your heart. So to me, focus on how you're feeling. Learn to listen to your body. If it's
Hmm.
cold, I mean, I've sat, in situations where I'm freezing and don't do anything about it. you know.
Hmm.
So do that. I say come out of the concrete jungle because most of us are in New York City.
Hmm.
Your listening audience is New York City mostly.
All over,
Okay.
not just
All
New
right. So
York.
if you are in a city, you really need to come out of that concrete and just breathe some fresh air. Go find a tree, hug a tree, something nature. Do something that has to do with nature. And finally pray and meditate, or whatever it is that you do to learn to be still and silent so that you could hear the inner man inside of you speak to you, because it does.
And sometimes when the people say, "Well, how do I meditate? How do I do it? I don't know how. Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way?" There is no right or wrong way to do it. Just do it.
Be
Just start
still. Be
somewhere.
still. Just
Just
be still.
start somewhere. I mean,
Be still and know that I am God.
hmm
Now you can take that any way you want. You can see yourself as God. You can pull it in from the universe. You can see it as Jesus. You can see it in any way you want. But be still and know that I am God. That's to me the way to meditate. Just be
I mean,
still.
I think if people can take small steps, like, taking 5 minutes a day to be still, because we are living in a microwave society, and we're living in a world where everything is so instantaneous. So I do believe that if you just take that very first step, like, take out 5 minutes out your day. And the best times, I believe, to do that is right before you go to bed and right when you wake up, because that's when your subconscious is working, and you can really start to tap into a deeper part of yourself, where it's like you can start to get that time to reflect, that time to not really think about anything specific, but just kind of let your mind wander. And you can use aids initially, like, because some people do have a problem sitting still, Linda. Some people, they just cannot sit still. So I would say, like, use things that kind of helps you to relax, to get you in that frame of mind so that you can meditate, which is either, maybe soundscapes, maybe nature sounds, maybe classical music, maybe jazz, maybe anything that kind of gets you into the relaxation state. So you can use aids to kind of help you along initially, but then once you start to do it, you get better at it, right, Linda?
Yeah.
I mean, how long have you been meditating?
Um, wow. I'll tell you something that I did do. Um, when I retired, because I retired from the Board of Ed as I was working there, and I took off because I had the time. I took off almost 3 years and went into complete solitude. That's when I did a lot of reading and stuff, and because I was waking up at 4 in the morning or whatever, so it was really a lot of quiet time. So for me, self-reflections, just like you said, setting goals, believing in yourself, seeing the good in everything. I'm not saying anything that you're not saying. I'm
Hmm.
really not, but the thing that I think is the most beautiful about it is that, you have somebody else coming on saying what you're saying, which makes you unselfish. It
Okay.
makes you a person who's really generous,
Hmm.
and one thing I've learned about life, and I feel the same way, there is room for everything on this planet. I don't care how many people are writing books. Look how many books there are out there. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care how many people are talking about positive health. There is a need, and I'm not going to touch the same people you touch. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So there's room for everyone.
There's
In everything.
always room. There's
And
always room.
seeing the biggest thing for me is to see yourself as
Mm-hmm.
God sees you. And God is whatever you conceive it to be. God can be the universe, it could be energy, it could be Jesus, it could be Allah, it could be, it could be God himself, as we
Mm-hmm.
know it. It doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same thing. It's the energy, the universe. It's the power that's within
Mm-hmm.
us. So if you can see yourself as God sees you, or if you can see other people as God sees them, then
Mm-hmm.
you're on the right track.
Yes. Well, I agree with so many things that you said, and that's why we vibe so well because
I'm
we are so
mirroring you.
like-minded. I know we're running out of time soon, but I would like to close with my signature question that I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, if you were to look into the mirror and see your younger self, what would you tell her?
Ooh, I love you. And I think what I would say, there's a movie out called The Marriott Hotel, and it's about senior citizens, but there's a theory in there. It says that everything is going to be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end.
I love that. I
Keep
love that.
smiling. Yeah, that really hit me. If it isn't all right, it's not the end. Everything's
Exactly.
going to be all right in the morning.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for joining us. Please be sure. Let's put up. Do you have a website or some information that you want to share with the audience where they can find you on
Well,
Instagram, social
I
media?
work at WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, and they have a website. I was looking for it while I was talking to you. I don't have it in front of me, but I do work at WHCR. And if anyone wants to contact me, it's 646-373-1973. I do have I have an email number, and
Mhm.
that's MONDESI number 7 at AOL.com, the old one. I keep
Okay. Okay, well, I want you guys to please be sure to share this podcast, to like it, to, just share it with everyone you know, because this is some great information, and I'm so happy to have guests like you to share your story, because this is what people don't realize, that when you're on the journey to creating the life you love, and when people that actually do that, they share something in common. It's just that their story is different. They changed their mindset. That's what they did. And like you said earlier, Linda, they believed that they could. And do you want to share any last quick words with us before we close?
Well, let me see. No, because what I think was the biggest thing was everything's going to be all right. But I
Okay.
can say that there's two books. You had asked me that question when we were not on the air, and
Hmm.
there's two books I wanted to suggest that helps in this. And one is The Secret by Rhonda Bryan, and the
Hmm.
other one, Oprah Winfrey talks about it. She says that's her best book, and it's called The Seat of the Soul. And
Okay.
it's who is it? I don't know who the author is. The Seat of the Soul. I forgot
But
who
they
that.
can Google it. They can Google it.
Yeah, it's called The Seat of the Soul, and it's really, it's about authentic power,
Hmm.
and what it means to participate in it wisely. And it helped Oprah, helped her
It
a
can
lot.
help you too.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
thank you guys. Thanks so much, Linda, for being with us today.
oh,
And
thank you
make
for
sure you
having me. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Make sure you tune in. Like I said, don't forget to share, to like, to subscribe. And we all have the freedom to mindfully create the life that we love. Thank you.